Hello, everybody. My name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author and robot, and today I figured that we might commiserate together a little bit because it is getting to be October. October is literally just around the corner. How are your writing goals doing for the month, for the quarter, for the year? I would love to hear about what you're working on down in the comments below, and how things are going and what your struggles are, because today we are going to be talking about the most painful part of being a writer. Community input. And you can tell me if you've struggled with any of these things that we're about to talk about today. I'm sure I will go off on some tangents, because that's what it's about, really commiserating. Authors, we don't get a lot of chances to talk to people because our chosen pastime is something that you do in solitary, so then it's kind of hard to meet other writers because we kind of just want to be left alone most of the time. And then you find a writers group and you're like, everybody is weird in a way that, wow. Anyway, but before we get started on the group commiserating, if you enjoy what I do on this channel, please remember to like, share, subscribe for more, because I need you quite honestly. And also, when we hit 1,000 subscribers on this channel, I'm gonna do a bookshelf reveal, a bookshelf tour, so you can see all the cool stuff that's over there. There's a pretty cool dude up there. In case you wanted to see, I'll give you a little sneak peek, okay? That's Val, way up there in the corner. Now that's all that you get, because I don't want to spoil anything. And I feel like, you already got an eyeful of... You've already gotten an eyeful of what all is up there. So really, you're going to get stories. There's also some cute little stuff over there that I love that you can do with the camera. Like a sketchy surgeon's box with some skeletons doing some sketchy things in there. It may surprise you. With all that said, let's just get into it. What is the most painful part of being a writer? Brought to you by our writing, and thank you, Matt Dawson, for suggesting this topic. Top comment is, being hyped about your own story nobody gives a frick about. The truth is, you are your own hype man up until other people decide to become your own hype man because they have seen what you actually write. Other than the question is, do your family and friends count as your hype men? I guess technically, yes, they do. They're your first hype men if they actually do hype what you're working on. I can assure you that of the handful of family members I'm actually in regular contact with, only one of them actually cares about what the frick I'm doing. But then I have a couple of very good friends, some best friend that I consider basically family, and they cross over into hype land, but it's not quite the same thing. Anyway, yes, you are your own hype man, but guess what? That's something you kind of got to get used to so that you can constantly be hyping your own story to get other people hyped. I mean, come on. Bleed More, Body More, coming out at the end of October. I am so hyped. You don't even know. The audiobook by Kieran Regan is going so well. He is the talent that did the Dead End Drive book. He is, I call him talent, and then it just makes it redundant when I say he is so talented. He is doing an incredible job with that book. It is so fun to listen to. I think Body More has become my favorite over Dead End Drive, even though Dead End Drive was like my 10+ year goal to do, and Body More I only came up with last year, but I think I way love Body More but I think I love Body More way more than I like Dead End Drive. Dead End Drive is funny, but Body More has so much heart in it, dude. I'm so excited to share that story with people and to see more responses to it, and just to see if I can get some people to... I know, I'm trying to get my colors right, but I just start looking radioactive at this end. Okay. And just... writing book 2 has been a struggle, but I've actually hit a couple of spots in book 2 that I'm like... So I'm very much looking forward to... I'm still struggling through book 2. But I am in Act 3. I'm in chapter 13 out of 19, I think, or 12 out of 19. So I'm getting very close to the end of that. And I love these characters, like, a lot. that I can't wait. So, yes, it sucks being hyped about your own story, but guess what? If you can package up your hype and tell other people, look, I'm still messing with it, and tell other people about your hype so that they also feel your hype, that is going to bring on the hype and get other people excited too. So, yes, being hype about your own story sucks, but also prepare yourself. Because look at this other comment right underneath. You're kind of shooting yourself in the foot here when you say, I've become an expert in not saying a single word to anyone about what I'm working on. It's a lot easier. It's a lot better that way. I figure if it doesn't get published, then no one needs to know that I wrote it. I mean, yes, if you don't really want anybody to talk about it, but also if you want to get the early hype going, if you want to show that you're hype about it, it can be super, super hard to be talking about your book and then have people be like, yeah, no. So recently I had an experience where I went to a local bookstore to see if they would carry my books. And yeah, I hated it because I'm not good at being a distributor. Look, if you set me at a table at an event where I can just sell pitch my books to passersby and talk to them about that, I can do that no problem. If you tell me to go into a store and talk to a store owner, I'm like, and it only gets harder when the store owner keeps getting distracted and talking to literally everybody but you and interrupting your conversations to talk to other people. And I'm like, I can't do this. I can't freaking do this. I get it. But also, be your hype man. Also, be careful who you pitch your stuff to before your story is done, because pitching in public, especially in California, can be a problem. But have a good time. Enjoy the creative process. Enjoy the process of coming up with something out of nothing. It is so fun. And I think the more you get somewhat confident in what you're doing, or you are vibing on what you're doing, the more it comes out when you talk about it, and then the easier of a time you have talking about what you're doing. My next book is not slated to come out until May 1st, but I'm so excited and so ready to talk about that as well. And so, it's hard. It's hard. But hype it. Hype. Have a good time. When you've written 60,000 words and realize that your story just doesn't work for whatever reason and has to be either completely reconceived or scrapped. I've got a project that's like this, except it's not 60,000 words, it's like 160,000 words, because I already just finished the first draft, and by just, I mean I finished it in 2017, 2018, and half the story is missing. And it took me like another couple of years to figure out sort of the other half of the central characters that I have to actually restructure into the plot. So a lot of that book is going bye-bye. Now, I unfortunately still have it on my wall as a revision when I think it's just basically doing a draft one again, because I have to rewrite so much of that book. I have to discard so much of that book. It doesn't even count. But I don't even think that's the worst part. It's just kind of like, okay, we're going back to square one. I do hate draft one so much. Let me know what you like in the comments down below. Are you a draft one person, or are you a revision person? I am team revision, because that's when I know where I'm going, and I can make everything better. To go back to this question here, when do you realize that maybe a story is not working out? You know what's actually worse than this is having it published and then going, oh, shite, none of this works. How did none of my partners warn me about these issues? I had some professors in graduate school who said they never went back to look at their old books once their books were published, because they didn't want to feel bad about themselves. And I mean, if stuff is that bad, I can understand looking at your old work and the things you would change, because I get that with Dead End Drive, and I'm only a year out from Dead End Drive being published. But I wouldn't ever want to feel so bad about something that I published that I wouldn't ever want to look at it again. I don't know. Let me know where your hard line is on that too. Finding a way to ignore the daunting odds and persevere. That is really hard. I have this conversation, I feel like, probably on the not bi-daily. I have this conversation probably at least once a week, sometimes with only myself, and sometimes with my BFFL, where I'm just like, what the frick am I doing? Usually when I'm in first draft or revision, I'm like, what the frick am I doing? I'm wasting my life doing this, and nobody's gonna want to pay attention to anything that I'm doing. Yeah, that's pretty terrible. But like this guy is saying right underneath, if you're a pretty decent writer with a marketable story, it's not that bad. It's true. If you look at a lot of the really popular stories that are out there, it's not like they're immaculately written or anything. It's all about marketing and getting people to know your name. So if you can put together a decent book and then figure out how to market it, you're probably going to be fine. The hardest part is marketing it, and the other hardest part is getting noticed for your book and standing out against others all of the millions of others who are pushing books forward. So, I mean, there is that. Guy says, the loneliness. You can't just explain to other people all the ways you care about the work you're writing. If you could, you wouldn't need to write it in the first place. I'm not sure I totally understand that second half where you could explain it, you wouldn't need to write it. But there is the loneliness of what we all have to deal with to get our stories done. Turning down all kinds of events or social things or job opportunities or dates maybe in order to sit down and write, because the only thing that stops the writing from happening is not writing. Bad Guy Windows says, for me, it's getting out of my head and just writing. No more second guessing, no more doubts, no more I'll wait until a better time thoughts, no more self-hatred, just focusing and being able to write uninhibited. That is something that you do have to teach yourself to do, and I've learned, and when I'm having a really, really hard time doing that, I usually start a timer, and I make myself write for a timer 10 to 15 minutes at a time, focused, maybe with music, maybe without music, whatever it takes. But putting myself on a timer when I'm having a very difficult time focusing really helps me get the writing done when I'm having that hard of a time. It's also super important to your self-discipline to learn that even when you feel bad, even when you feel like crap, even when you hate it, that you should be pushing through to write it. And I will go through that regularly, where I'm in the middle of revising something and I'm like, this is complete trash. What am I doing? I'm wasting my life, blah, 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 blah. But I've already wasted like 2 months on this, blah, blah, blah. So, you just have to push through. You have to accept, I feel this way, but I'm invested, so I'm going to work on this anyway. It's all unfortunately part of the life cycle of working on a book. as I glance over at my laptop over there where my Bodymore Book 2 is waiting for me to go and work on it today because I haven't done that yet, and I'm running out of time, and get some words in before it's too late. Aunt Marjorie says, the self-loathing that comes from not being able to write. Some have physical issues and can't always write. Some have psychological issues and can't always write. When it's who you are, it hurts. Your body or mind fails you. You have nothing left to give. You don't even have enough energy to do something that makes you happy. I don't know if I know. I don't think that I know this thing because obviously I'm a robot. I don't feel a whole lot. So I don't feel the self-loathing or the physical issues or the emotional issues from not being able to write. But I do think that I am wasting my life and wasting my time, especially because I'm not putting work into what I think is such an important thing, and the only way to get writing done is to work at it regularly. So I will feel bad, like I'm wasting my time and I'm just not even trying by not putting in the work that I feel like I should be putting in to make it work. And then it's even worse because you're like, well, I'm putting in this work, but it doesn't even matter if I put in this work because I'm always going to be a failure and blah, blah, blah. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. But I don't physically feel bad. I'm just like, what the frick am I doing with my life? Sometimes being a robot really has its benefits. That's all I can say. Rhinestone C says, doing this thing all of this time for years, but unlike musicians and artists, I can't be like, hey, look at what I can do and pull out my novel at a party. So little recognition beyond, wow, you wrote a whole book? That's crazy. It's true. I've noticed this too, is with musicians and artists, you can physically show somebody your physical art, visual art, or you can show somebody your music, but there's no real quick and easy way to show somebody your literary art or your literary work. And a lot of people really don't want to invest that much time into some random art. And I've also had this has been part of what contributes to the depression or the feelings of just nothing or wasting time, is you sit in a room for a while, maybe it's months, maybe it's years, it can feel like so much longer even when it's a couple of months, and it feels like you're spinning wheels because you're just the only person working on the same thing again and again, and you're really not getting any feedback, and it's so hard to get feedback on written work because it is time consuming to respond to it. And then when you finally get it done, you put it out there and it's like, and nobody notices. Thanks. I feel like I'm in the same spot that I was in 3 years ago when I was still on draft 1. Good time. Oh look, and the next person kind of echoes that. In my experience, it's lack of results. You can slave away at a novel, fail multiple times, and get no positive feedback along the way. It's hard to see fruits of your labor. Writing is lonely as hell. And it's really hard. And it's really hard to practice, and it's really hard to get better, and readers can be very brutal, but I will say that consumers in any genre or any art can be very, very brutal. If you've ever looked at video game reviews on Steam, or not even just video game reviews on Steam, go and look at freaking Twitter accounts for stuff complaining about video game stuff, like freaking I'm only going to vaguely mention the response to the Back 4 Blood beta with people complaining about stuff that is just like, what? What? Now there are legitimate criticisms, but there are also a lot of less than legitimate criticisms that I have seen, and gamers are brutal. Movie reviewers can also be very brutal. Book reviewers can also be very brutal, and when it's really hard to find different ways to improve yourself or critique partners or something that pushes you to the next level or how to learn to be a better writer or any of this, it's even harder to level up your writing to get to the point where you feel really confident about it, or to get to the point where you're not getting only negative or harsh reviews. It is a task to learn to do it successfully. I will give you that. Mine is not so much about writing itself. I love most of the steps of the writing process, but about how people around me perceive my hobby. I work full-time and write on the side because my hobbies are not owning my own side business, college, or a second job. My family all pretty much look down on me. I'm seen as the poor, weak link that can't afford decent housing, even though my main job covers the bills. That's so weird to establish creative writing with your financial situation when your financial situation is already fine. To this day, no one in my immediate family has read anything that I have written or even let me talk about my stories around. This is where you have to be your own hype man. At Thanksgiving, force your stories at them. Force it. Tell them how amazing they are. Get them to get hyped about your stories. If they go, how is this other thing going over here? Tell them about your stories like it's a hunting trip. Make them king. But also, yeah, most family doesn't really. A lot of family really doesn't look into what you're writing or working on. That just kind of happens. And it's part of the lonely road. The fear that if I were to die tomorrow, all of the unwritten words and characters will die with me. I have that. With my line of things over there that I want to work on, and just the stories that I can imagine that I have to tell, that I know that I have to tell, even the ones that are partially done right now, I'm like, I feel like I want to die sometimes. But I don't really think that I can, because I have a responsibility to tell these stories, and then it's just depression. Oh, my favorite, and by favorite I mean least favorite, comforting line when I'm feeling depressed or hopeless about my writing is when somebody says, hey, you know, most writers don't make it until they die, right? Oh, thank you. Thank you for your blessing that I should have a cursed life until the day that I die. Should I just hurry it up and end it so that I can get something while my extended family is still alive? Just so you know, it's probably not helpful to say, you'll probably maybe make something when you're dead. Not helping. Not helping. Inquisition Shotgun says, it's more of a double-edged Inquisitive Shogun says, it's more of a double-edged sword, but the fact that my success and failure begins and ends with me and me alone. But under the right mindset, this can also be liberating. It's true. Your story only doesn't get written because of you, but your story only gets written also because of you. Your story getting out there only happens because you make it happen one way or another, and it's true. And there's really no one else to blame but yourself one way or another. And, you go, wow, I am in control, while at the same time you go, wow, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm doomed. So, that's a thing. Higher Towers says, not being able to exist there, that it's not real and I'll never know these people or these worlds. I suffer from atrophy every time I write. I don't care if people are excited about my book, if they read it, if it gets published. These lives matter to me. This world is alive to me, and I hate that I can't truly be there except for what's in my head. I love it all so much, and it hurts. Does anybody else have this? I don't particularly have this because I think the way that I approach writing is is quite different from that, but that sounds like somebody that writes either sci-fi or fantasy, probably fantasy. And I land more in the urban fantasy era or the satire era with stuff that melts how I like the real world with some mystical elements. So I don't really have that. And I can see in my characters and the way that I write places or settings, my personality or my ideas or just different parts of my psyche or the things that I see in the world as they are now, but to a much broader, exaggerated extent. So I don't necessarily feel that, but I'm not building from the ground up like somebody who maybe writes fantasy. But do you ever feel like that? Do you ever feel like you could just wish you could be teleported into the world that you've made and to interact with your characters? And also let me know, have you ever had a crush on one of your created characters? I can't say that I ever had, because every time I make a character who is in a romantic relationship, who might be romantically viable, the only person that is okay for them to be in a relationship with is the person that I made for them to be in a relationship with. So I can't say that I felt anything like that for any of my characters. So none of them are my type. I have a very specific profile that I fall for. Not a physical profile. It's just a charisma that I recognize running between every kind of person I've ever been attracted to. Anyway, that's a place to leave this on. So what is the most painful part of being a writer for you? Do you agree with any of the above? And if you have any answers to some of the questions that I asked while going through this, let me know in the comments down below. I'm interested in hearing from you about your writer's experience, and let's commiserate together. Really. Anyway, with all that said, thank you so much for watching. I hope this was sort of fun, maybe in a painful kind of way, in a misery likes to share company kind of way. I hope you have a great Thursday and a great weekend. There won't be any loin stream tomorrow because I'm going to First Friday. So have a great Friday or Friday night, Saturday morning, and don't die.
Was that Wayland Cross in the trunk? Do you know, or is that something that's still being figured out?
The person in the trunk was not Wayland Cross.
Is he in trouble?
We don't know who did it, but as the owner of the car, the longer he's missing, the worse it looks for him.
Cross isn't a killer. For the last couple of years, the average number of murders in Baltimore has been over 300, and it's been going up. Mind you, that's only whatever the badges count as official murder, and believe me, there are people that don't count when they die. Wayland? If you're down here, tell me. I'm not talking to the badges, I've been looking for you. They found a body in your trunk. Way. Why? Did you do that? To the left. Plain black letters read along the wall. You walked in the corridor. Once that ends, you chose the dark is on the right. My vision goes blurry, flickers black and black and black for longer intervals until I can't see anything at all. I'm not screaming anymore, but my voice echoes back to me. Where the hell am I? You're dead, Josephine. Even smart people do stupid shit sometimes, right?